Good morning. Day 2. Awesome. If you don't have the energy, there's a coffee machine right at the back. So please make sure that you're fueled and energized. Very happy to welcome you to the session. I'm Amrita. I work with the IC3 Institute and I lead all the academic efforts. And we have Ambika here with us, who's going to introduce herself.
Hi, my name is Ambika. I used to be the counselor at DPS Arkipuram. I have now moved into a role with the DPS to be running a college access program across their schools pan-India.
Okay, so just before we get into what we have to offer, what are some of the things that you're hoping to hear, know, discuss, throw it out in the open? Okay, you need coffee.
I think we have, well, I come from a university space and we look at students, we meet them, interact with them for recruitment. At what point are we pushing ourselves too hard? We intend that, oh, I would like to get the student in. And when should I be stopping about talking too much about how good we are at what we do or the USP? And constantly I see ourselves reminding us that, you know, we are here to actually help the student be aware of many things, etc. So I'd like to understand this better, and that's why I'm here.
Thank you. Anyone from the school side?
See, I'm coming from the session that was on AI. So not much talk on ChatGPT and the right thing. So something again that goes ahead with that. So I'm actually, my mind is working that way. So probably that caught my attention and I'm here.
I think that the ethical some issues right now happening in high schools, how we are going to, make it better and let them to engage with our students. Okay, hello, good morning. I'm Renu from Nepal. And today I'm here in this session and I'd like to ask our Amrita ma'am and I forgot your name, don't mind. And the thing is, this is the world now, this is the time we need to know how we can help to counseling in every part of our school and colleges. But I really want to know from this, what are some of the efficient ways which is timely giving so that we can take back and share to our children? Thank you.
So I'm Prathamesh. So as university advisors, I believe we are also part counselors, right? We also get asked a lot of questions about how do I go about this, or, I am not sure. And what would you, tell me about this particular major and things like that. So I'm here with no expectations actually, but just wanting to know what is the best approach that we can take as university advisors when we are dealing with the most important in the room, which is the students.
Thank you. Thank you. And I'm going to, pass this on to Ambika and we'll see how we cover some bits of what you've mentioned and maybe something more. We will try to keep it moving fast. So the speed at which you respond is going to help us move faster and then hopefully come to the points that you want us to come to or, which we can discuss collectively.
Okay, so it has to be interactive. We don't claim to know everything, though we have worked between Amrita and me, we have worked with thousands of kids and with nearly 1,000 universities, I think easily. So we have perspectives, but ours are influenced by our biases. We're both based in New Delhi. We had certain kind of high achieving schools, but the world is bigger than what she and I experienced. So please feel free. I will request that we have 30 minutes. So stand up, say, hi, I'm Ambika, I represent DPS, and get to the point because there's a lot that everybody needs to say. So that's just a request. And if you want the mic for a longer time, the new sessions are next year. Please remember to set up your own sessions. Okay. So put your hand up if you have faced either in school or seen anyone doing plagiarism. Right? For those who haven't, how did you manage? Because we see it in student essays. Yesterday, we were talking about digital safety. 43 universities have written to us in the last month saying that kids have given them ChatGPT emails, and some of them have even forgotten to remove your name brackets, right? So let's talk about this. Confidentiality. Are you safeguarding the privacy of your students? Are you using platforms that are selling your student data? I have no problem with it if that is your school policy. If your school or your university has clear and explicit understanding, the stakeholders whose data is being sold knows about it. That is between you and your ethics. Again, it's a spectrum. How many of...
Not just the platform, even between you and I.
Yes.
I may be the counselor, she may be the class teacher of the kid that I'm doing application for. I come in and say, hey, he's really stressed out, has a lot of anxiety. Yeah. And that child may have discussed it in full confidence with me. So, but I'm doing it out of my best interest. But is that okay?
Right? Did you see the way she picked up the mic, guys? How practiced is that? There's a reason you go with an expert when you're doing your sessions, right? Okay, so that is one. The second is when you're discussing kids, whether you're discussing it with a counselor, whether you're discussing it with parents. I, for one, have faced challenges where I'm discussing what the kid has told me in my room with perhaps a parent, because sometimes those lines, you're not a shrink. So where is that confidentiality? And these are, again, personal spectrums, right? How many of us have known of or faced personally? Okay, if you faced it personally, raise both hands. If you know of an incident, just raise one hand. A confidentiality issue. Okay, so you're seeing the schools actually put up both their hands, right? Misrepresentation. So how do you ensure that the information that you give the colleges is accurate and fair? Again, if my students have done 95 hours of hard work and volunteer work, and they write 100, I sometimes let it go. But if they've done 20 hours, they're not allowed to write 100, right? There's a balance there. So how many of us have faced misrepresentation in facts, figures? Guys, think about it. How many of you have had students say, parents say, oh, my child is the best. Genius. How many of you have had universities come and tell us, right?
How many I'd just like to ask the universities, how many of you have seen 3-4 applications from the same school and in the letters of recommendation saying that he or she's the top of the class, like in all 3, right?
So these are things to think about. Again, and look around when the hands are going up. It'll give you a sense of what are the issues that we're facing. Now, this is another group where you have to do effectively a SWOT analysis, right? So conflict of interest. There might be personal issues, and we will get into the case studies very quickly. Just giving you these 10 pointers of things you will face. Why do we label them? Like, we did in the digital safety within the Veer yesterday. We label them so that it's easier for you to identify. And once you can identify, you will have a solution for that problem. So conflict of interest is when your personal or financial interests may be on the edge, on the fence. And this does not, it says counselor, but it could be for somebody who's an external. It can be for a vendor, a partner, a dean. How many of you know a friend whose kids are applying to a college and you pick up the phone and say, hey, my sister's kid? It happens. So
Or you have a favorite kid in that group,
my
in that graduating class, and when they're deciding between 2 or 3 universities, you have your favorite university amongst those 2, 3, and you're like, you're dying and you're dropping every possible hint, right?
Yes, we've done it. I mean,
Yeah.
most recently,
Yeah.
Tanish
Yeah.
got into a school. I wasn't sure. So I went to Kanchi and said, you've been at these 2 schools, because I wanted to distance myself from my bias. I have a clear bias. I don't want that to play out. And this is when I'm conscious about it. How many of us are not conscious about our biases? And we'll talk about bias. Then disclosing options. So again, do you want to deal with disclosing options? I think that's a little more.
Yeah. So it's about how much do we know and how much do we want to provide, and to whom and at what stage, so it might also, and there comes the responsibility of the counselor, because you have to, it's a very anxiety provoking, anxiety inducing process for the students. And if you're the adult in the situation and the expert in the situation, how many options do you provide, and at what stage and in what manner do you provide that? And and I think I, like Ambika shared, also, so when I was working at a particular school and I would host a university fair, a lot of times my school head would say, why do we have these universities? So I'm like, okay, all our kids are not, doesn't mean that, so it's also about how the pushback from the management is, you're not pushing them to aim higher, but am I not pushing them because they haven't bloomed yet, they're not at their best yet. Okay, so is it okay to disclose options that are not what a particular school of a particular standard would be happy to put on their board, saying that?
That's it. Okay, so for me, another example here, again, counselor's perspective, is there are certain deadlines for scholarships. And you have advanced deadlines for those scholarships. So while you might be able to, for example, in the US, you can apply by 1st of Jan or 15th of Feb. But the scholarship or the presidential scholarship in, let's say Toronto, etc., there are paperworks which have to be delivered by a certain date. If you don't disclose that scholarship is available to all the students. I don't know where you stand on that. For me, we sent that information to everybody. We sent out a form and said, if you would like to be nominated, explain to me why you want to be nominated. And then we got to choose because you had to filter out.
And there is another, so in the same option, when you have, you have full ride scholarships that are being offered by universities, they're often also need-based. There's an element of need, right? So which means that if I, as a school, am sharing a circular to say that, hey, this is up for grabs. Do you have an internal school criteria? And yes, no, that's one. And then you also get privy to their financial information.
Yeah.
And in your role, you're not used to that. In an administrative role, you're not used to that. So who evaluates that for you? Does that impact the way you then guide the student?
And then last again, this is just to help you understand the nuances in ethics that apply to our roles, whether you're on this side of the table or on the university side of the table. Equal access. Just because somebody's father is so-and-so, or somebody's mother is such and such, is that child getting extra? So in my counseling room, my joke is everybody gets treated unfairly. Because ma'am, life is so unfair, ma'am, that's so unfair. Yeah, good news. Everybody is treated unfairly, okay? That's life. Because there's nobody who, in my school, in my batches after batches, 11th, who can say that, oh, so-and-so ma'am liked more, so they got more time. I match the energy of the child. Do not match the energy or the title or the bank balance of the parent. Now, that is a personal ethic. You build that reputation in school, and sure, there are some people who you may have to. We didn't do anything extra for him, but the chairman of the CBSC was a parent of ours in school. Nobody told me. The gentleman waited an hour outside my room. That's all right. I also then went running to my principal and said, I think our license is getting cancelled. I didn't know. Because he asked me, what do you think of CBSC? He shouldn't have asked me. Because I was like, hey, Vineet Joshi, wonderful gentleman, went on to do NTA, by the way, which is the National Testing Agency. Fabulous, did not take out his little visiting card, which had his name, nothing. He spoke to me like a parent and said, I just want some options. What do you think? And then he's like, so what do you think? Where do you think we can do better with CBSC? I'm like, let me tell you. If you have asked me, this is what I would do. Obviously, then 10 minutes later, when you find out he's the chairman, then you go running to your principal and says, you need to fire me now, because that's the only way this is going to survive. Our license is going. No, I mean, this is a joke. I'm just sort of writing the situation, but I'm trying to explain to you, the parent's title should not affect your counsel. The parent's budget affects your counsel, not the parent's bank balance. Do you see the difference? The bank balance is different from the budget for the child. Let the bank balance be. The budget that they're willing to spend on undergraduate education should affect your child.
I think another thing for me in equal access as a counselor is am I getting to meet every child, or am I only meeting the kids who are walking into my office? So if I say equal access, does that mean that I ensure that I at least meet the kid may not want to meet me another time, that's fine. But am I ensuring a baseline hygiene?
Right.
And the other thing is also that some parents, when you're saying keep X and Y separate, you may be able to do it. But is there pressure from your management to say, hey, take care of this? You as a counselor, have you been called by your head of school to say, this kid needs more time, or you cannot say no, or please be careful, right? So it's also your personal ethic sometimes against.
How do you balance it out? Look at the
Yeah.
graphic. We're
Yeah.
trying to balance these things. So this is the balance section of the ethics. How do you balance equal access? Influencing choices is obvious. We're going to move on. It's a smart bunch here. Dual relationships. Some of us have personal relationships outside of school. This could be family. It could be colleagues that you have made and you have enjoyed an evening beverage, and then you're better friends than perhaps somebody who you've met for the first or second time. So how do you manage that? And then transparency. For us, that is important, I think, Amrita. And I'm saying that as colleagues. I'm not saying that as, the director of academics and, who's taking cohort out of cohort, training up people. I don't know how she does it. For us, how you speak to your students, parents, all your stakeholders, and everybody here is stakeholders, your colleagues, is important. One of the things I'm known for is that I'm the same person I am here in front of camera, is the same I am with you personally, is the same I'm with my kids. I'm the same with parents, and I'm the same with my bosses. And as one have just heard, I'm also same with leaders in the government. Because this is who I am. I'm trying to be a more authentic human being. And it shows. And can I please assure you, children are very, very smart. They know when you're playing them, they know it. Because their instincts have not yet been dulled by the world. They're still not jaded by situations, most of them. And so they will read you. If you are just your true self, they will read that as well. So for me, I think that's a very easy one to be, is be transparent.
Yeah, so it's not just about the data of the application. It's also about, like, how do you tell a child very crudely, you shouldn't be applying here? Your chances are, like, how do you communicate that?
We have a high achieving school.
Yes.
Everybody thinks they get into MIT.
Yes.
Last 3 years, I've sent 1 kid to MIT. We have not sent 3,000 kids to MIT. How did we do it? I'd be like, yeah, you want to do this, darling? Here's somebody who got into MIT last time round. This is the caliber they expect. It's not what I'm asking you. Do you think you're there? And sweetheart, do you think you can reach that? And if you can, I'm here for you. But if you don't make the effort, okay, this is another joke. If you do not make the effort, you can't get into MIT. And if you go for a walk, I cannot lose the weight, right? But it really works. This one line that if you exercise, I don't lose the weight. If I really work hard, you don't get into college. It doesn't work that way. There is no cross-pollination here. And please feel free to use any of these lines. They really work with the kids. I'm highly practiced. Okay. Okay, so we're coming into the case study section.
Okay, so what we've put out is 3 scenarios, and we'd like you to, the segment is what would you do, right? And of course, very lovingly, we have picked on some of our colleagues and friends. So Agastya is my nephew, yeah. Agastya is considering a career in either mathematics or art. Agastya's parents are unsure about art as a subject and feel mathematics is a more lucrative field, providing higher salary. Should Amrita, his school counselor, recommend Agastya to pursue a career in art or mathematics? Thoughts quickly?
There can be choice of subjects where the dual major or the dual degree or a major minor, or like some way the art can also be pursued with mathematics, depending on what is on the higher side, maths or art. Parents are unsure. So parental orientation and conversation takes time. It's not going to happen in the one session, and sometimes in front of the child or in the absence of the child, because they are conditioned for years about the security. Because one thing I always tell the parents is, parents want the happiness of the child and they think this is the only route. So make them understand the longer that. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
One line that works in the conference room is, in the counselor's room is, I want the same thing for your child as you want. I want your kid to be happy, healthy, and successful. And in 4 years, I want them off your wallet.
Yeah.
I want them earning their own money and developing their own personality.
Yeah.
So first, what you do is if you say it and you put that basis, no parent can say, I want less than that.
Yeah.
So you established a bench line. The second thing is happiness is ephemeral, yeah,
Yeah.
and it's all internal.
Yeah.
It's a little difficult. The child will be chasing a butterfly and being measly unhappy. You
Agree.
have to find purpose and
Agree.
you have to have that joy that Amrita and I get up and we're like, we're taking on ethics, you know. I was
Yeah.
saying, we'll have 6 people in the room. 3 are your friends, 3 are my friends. And we have a similar set of friends. It's possible it's only going to be our 3 friends. Right? So we're
So-
taking on the difficult topics.
Yeah, so my statement or my sentence was not over. Like when we are telling this or talking about this, there are parents sitting in front of us with that blindfold. They don't want to hear anything. They don't want to.
So how do you handle it? We're not asking, I mean, we all know that.
So, yeah, so there are like case to case difference. There will be some who will understand. There will be some where we'll have to actually shut our mouth. We cannot go beyond because that goes into something which we don't want. So it's a mixed response. Somewhere we are successful, somewhere we are not.
So you're saying we share options?
Hmm.
That was your first thing. Options of minor,
Options of
major.
where they intersect.
Yeah, she covered it.
Okay.
What would you do with the parents? What would you do with the child? What would you?
And where do
What
your
about the
ethics come in?
family?
So it's back to the 10 pointers. Where do your ethics come into this? Disclosing options, unbiased, influencing choices. It applies to everybody. That's true. I think in India, if you can manage the parent body, that's half the solution right there. The babies are easy.
Good morning, everyone. As a parent, like first time, they will not agree with whatever anybody says. It's a common phenomena in Indian mom and papa. So we need to explain the consequences. Suppose a child has chosen art, then what else the options are been ahead? And suppose if a child chooses a mathematics, and what are the options ahead? Here, the child is the most important person who has a personal choice and passion towards the art subject. That point we need to emphasize in front of the parent and say that like without any passion or interest, whatever the choices or options, whichever best college university you join the child, the result may not be so fruitful. That could be one option. And the second option is you may say that like nowadays it's not only maths or BPC or MPC or further science and maths only are the leading things, leading factors for a person to approach in a higher status. But even art also can make a child to go and reach a certain higher level, which even a mathematics student may not achieve after he sits in front of a system.
Okay, so
becoming
what I'm going to do
software.
is I'm going to put out a sort of an approach. Yeah, because the first thing you're doing, we're all talking long term, you know, the child may be happier, etc., etc. I don't think any of us are crystal ball gazers and can say that the child will be happier doing this or there'll be more salary here, etc. What you could talk about is with current statistics or data. My first important point would be to understand family's financial situation, because if you read the last slide, it spoke about a lucrative or higher salary,
Yeah.
right? So my first sort of option would be in finding a resolution or approaching the situation would be to understand the family's financial situation, to encourage financial planning and explore financial aid and collaborate with financial aid office. So this is one side, just one of the elements that was there in the case study. Of course, the other element was about options, about future possibilities of programs where both can be pursued. And also let's assume that he's equally good at both, right? Does the decision have to be made now? Or can it be, you know, is more exposure required at a later point in time? So those are conversations that you could have, and also to challenge, I don't know whether I'm using the right word, but also to sort of challenge, contest parents, mindset, and do that probably with data, right? Like you get numbers on whatever you're worried about. I can get numbers on what, you know. But the first thing is to establish that we're in this together, like, you know, like mentioned. So that's a really important piece.
May I
Yeah.
also, okay, so some of you look surprised that we talked only money. Because we wanted to show you that, ma'am, please. Some of you looked surprised that we talked only money, and these 3 points, I could see the surprise on your faces that we didn't talk about collaboration, because that comes next. If you don't solve the primary problem. So if you'll just show me the last slide.
Yeah, I mean, we're going on talking about happiness, all of that, but
Very clearly, your first issue is lucrative field. The parents might be middle class. They might have debt. Maybe this is the child who's looking to support them. If you identify in this cloud of conversation, if your own bias is, no, let me help. No, please first listen. Stop helping, start listening. If you listen to what the problem is, you will understand the issue was the parents want the kid to be stable, financially stable. If you solve the stability problem, they will support you, they will respect you, and they will follow you blindly. And this was a test. Just to see, everybody talked about, let's do this, let's do that. Let's go into solution mode, please, for the love of everything, whether you are a university representative or you're a teacher, a leader or a counselor, listen to what they're saying. Your job is to understand their problem. You will have the answers. They'll listen to you once they think you have heard them out. So that's number one.
yeah, and then also here, like, let's say, what Rebecca is saying is that the child does need to support the family. Okay. So then does that impact your objectivity? Then will you say go math and not art, right? So maintain objectivity, empowered decision making. They're coming to you and saying decide. That's often something that counselors, you know, or even university reps say that you tell us which program is better. Where is the higher salary coming out of, right? So do you sort of just give them the information and then leave the decision to them, or do you say, or you politely nudge them into one direction, right? Provide comprehensive information, which includes alternate pathways as well. Yeah. So that was our first case study. I know some of hands up. Maybe we'll come to you in our following.
May I add one more thing?
Yeah.
I just want to share that there was this niece, and it said that out of they surveyed these tech startups, and they found that 50% of the founders were liberal arts students. Okay, so I'll repeat this. You can find it. If I find it, I'll put it on my LinkedIn. Please take it. No problem. What we need to understand is how many of us are doing what we studied in undergrad? Can I see a show of hands? One person, two people. So if you did business marketing, okay. Okay, that's it. So that's 10% of our room. Undergrad is important. This is my personal view again. Make it a broad-based degree where they learn skills. They can specialize in their master. I did economics. It helped me think a certain way. I love math. It helped me think a certain way. I'm also able to use math, ma'am, in numbers. If I convince you based on numbers, you'll be sorted. You will trust me the next time I ask you something.
Okay, moving into the next one. The school counselor, Ambika, is approached by McLaughlin University to promote their institution during a career fair. They offer a partnership with financial benefits for every 5 students enrolled from the school. Should Ambika or school accept the agreement offered by McLaughlin University and promote their institution during the career fair?
Let's also add a little thing that Jim, who's the dean of this university, is, you know, a good friend of mine.
What would you do?
Because this has happened.
Why would you not do?
And this has happened. This is a real case.
I mean, the first thing I'd look into is the basics covered. The university is decently reputed, you know, has all the basics covered. Then I'll look into the need of our students, because students are at the center, right? Does the majority or a good chunk of our student fit this university financially, major-wise, you know, post-grad opportunity, all that? And by taking all that into account, then I'll go forward with the MOU or whatever is there. So student will be at the center.
But you're comfortable then with taking the remuneration of 5 students? I mean, and yes.
That's
For the purposes of the case study, I will have time to decide. For the purposes of reality, it was me personally.
Personally, I would think
Yeah, let's talk both. Guys, I want to hear what you would do. Yeah, so would you take money from, would the school take the money? Should Ambika take the money?
I would be more comfortable with the school taking the money. I would
Okay,
double
how
check
many
it.
of us would be comfortable if the school took the money? No, okay, how many of school counselors would be comfortable if the school, because Meghna, if you're putting your hand up, you're just like, take it, please give me the kids. But how many, because that's a excellent return on investment on your, because it's going to the right place, et cetera, et cetera. How many school counselors would be comfortable if the school took the money? Not being recorded, just go for it. Nobody will be able to see your faces on Zoom. You will not be comfortable. Can I hear why?
I'm sorry, she said it. Neither is appropriate, nor am I comfortable with the school taking the money or me as a counselor taking the money.
I just said that.
Sure.
The school says that school of the counselor and the school discuss that we can take the money and hire another counselor or improve, have 2-3 more laptops in our office so that, you know, there's greater access.
Yeah, it just sounds like you're using students as pawns to get extra funding
Okay.
for the school.
I have.
I think it's about, again, it's a very deep ethical question. We've faced many times in our schools these issues, but we have never given in. Is as simple as that. Okay, I'm currently with Vasant Valley. I'm Ritu Dhingra. Some of you may have attended our session yesterday, and thank you for attending. I work with Vasant Valley at the moment. For the last 3 years, I've been with Vasant Valley. Before that, I was with Pathways. So we.
Ritu, I have a question. So
Yeah.
let's say I'm in university and we're really good friends and I'm making this offer to you. We're outside of school, right? Catch up on a beverage and I make this offer to you, right? You've decided that you don't want to go ahead with it. How would you communicate it to me?
To the to the
me.
school,
To me.
to you. Yeah, I have done that.
Hmm.
And it comes very easily to me.
How? So
It's
I've
a-
made
it's a
some,
very-
let's have a conversation. We are at XYZ place. We are
So I play smart. I will, if I can't say no directly, I will blame, I'll take the school's name.
say
And
that
I will-
blame.
Yes,
You-
I will just, yeah, I will just tell my school's policy is not this and I cannot enter this space because it's me, that's not
Okay.
the
So
space that
she's
I would be
talking
a
about the
part of.
school policy.
Even at a personal level, Amrita, even if it's at a personal level, until I am in that space of private space, I will not because I am a school employee.
Okay, so would an independent education consultant take it?
That is, thank you.
Maybe.
And maybe this is because my background in finance, because you should be an agent, and I'm using it as a loose word, of one party. Either you're representing the school, the parents and the kid, or you're representing the university. If you're double dipping,
Have to be very clear.
Kavita ma'am, I charge for most of my kids.
Yeah.
I barely charge
Yeah.
for my schools,
Yeah.
right? It's an ongoing joke about me. If a university wants to sponsor something,
Yeah.
and I'm open about it, and they want to sponsor a quiz or something, I'm happy to do that if it's going to the kids.
Yeah.
As a prize or something.
Yes.
But we'll also talk about people who might. So this was a case that did happen to me.
Hmm.
It wasn't Jim, obviously. And this was not when he was at Drexel, I want to clarify. This was, we were sitting at breakfast this morning. We decided to rag a couple of our friends. The next slide will do that. And I was offered money. We were already sending kids to that school. I was sending 20 kids a year to that school. I $10,000, let's say. That would be a certain amount. That was $200,000. That is not a small amount, even in the US.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
Yes. So why are we talking about this? We're talking about it because it is important for us to understand this is happening. It is your decision how you want to behave. It is your decision whether you want to make the money. It is easy for me I am not married. I don't have kids to put into college. I own my home. I'm an ex-investment banker. I don't need the $200,000, right? But what if you support, a family of 4? What if you have 2 mortgages? You have a parent who has a critical illness. Somebody somewhere will slip. And they will slip. That's reality. Understand, our job is also understanding human beings. So what is it that you can do?
Or also if the school is just starting out, is a population which has a large majority of economically backward class, right? What if they say, okay, we are taking this up because it'll help us get some funds to the school?
So we've done exactly this as even independent educational counselors. So when people offer saying, we'll give you a referral fee, we say, anyway, we don't accept referral fees. But if you want to offer that referral fee to the student, should they decide to work with you, you can do that. So that's I think always the best situation.
In our case, and then obviously.
Just to add to this, I work with the University of Exeter. As a university, we understand the situation, but at the same time, we also want to help students. There are certain universities which are not very well known. They don't have a lot of popularity among students, but as a university, we feel that a certain set of students would be a really good fit for us. So in that case, if you're doing this as one of the options, it's not about taking advantage of a student or a school university. It's just about being out there and saying, hey, we may be a bit better fit for you. And this could be one of the options, because for the university, it's always word of mouth works better than anything else.
Yes, but
So
so with uni, we have a relationship.
Yeah.
We work together.
Yeah.
See, with which you and I have worked together for the last 6 years. Tomorrow, if you offer something, I will not view it as a bribe.
Yeah.
We will work together to develop something which might
Absolutely.
work.
And
for the
this
kids.
is towards the school. So when I put my hand up saying that, maybe that those benefits could go to the school, which in turn could go to the students directly. So that was my perspective of saying, okay, if we're doing that, it could go to the schools and that could go to the students in that case.
I just want to draw your attention to one important aspect in this case study. It says for every 5 students. So even if it's a best fit institution, to get the financial benefit, you have to make sure that 5 kids apply. It's not for every kid who applies. So is that going to come into your bias or your, right? So
It will. Let's be honest. If you have taken the deal and you're at 4, then remember the case with Agastya and Amrita, his counselor, and he's doing math versus art. So let's say it's not math versus art. Let's say it is Ohio versus Exeter. You would, not that you guys would compete for the same kid, but assuming, what would you do? You'd close out 5 target driven. So I'm just saying these are things that will exist, and that's all right. You have to decide where you stand on the spectrum, and you have to decide what you stand for. And there are certain ways of protecting yourself, either as a university not to get taken advantage of, because kids can enroll, and by which time you've paid out, what happens then? I have had uni reps come and talk to me about this. And again, this is not dissing independence. This is not dissing the agents. Please go ahead and use whatever distribution marketing channel that you need to do. I'm a capitalist at heart. I genuinely believe in it. But let us also have a little respect for ourselves as a community.
the other thing that when we were doing this case study earlier, let's say the school decides to go ahead and have an MOU, right? We all love this word now and see it so often. I've had people who've asked, how does the school take the money? Like it goes into what account, and how, if you're saying it's going to be used for the students, let's say you have a school which has 25% population of EWS, and you want to be able to support their applications. I, as a school, receive the money in my account, the school account. On what basis am I giving that to? Am I going to be giving it out in cash? Am I going to be giving a check? Am I going to be paying for that application online? So it's not just saying, yeah, it's also all these nuances which then can get into your accounting, your audit, all of that as well, right? We're going to quickly move to the last.
EWS is economically weaker society. For those who don't know it, Delhi has a rule around it.
Ramya. Okay, Ramya created an ambitious list of UK colleges. Her counselor shared her predicted scores. Ramya's parents feel the predicted grades could be higher and are certain that she will score higher and demand a revision. How should the excellent school counselor deal with this scenario and really manage the implications of this scenario in her school?
So before we jump into it, how many people have had in the university side as well as on the school side this predicted issue? Yeah. So it's something, and again, there were hundreds of cases Amrita and I discussed. We had to pick only 3. We had 30, 40 minutes. So this was one of the things which really top of the pops for us.
What do you do?
You guys, come on. Yes, Kavita ma'am.
I do mock interviews in front of a parent with the child, which helps quickly dispel or, sort of myths about whether the child can get in or not. And it has done it very effectively without me having to have a tough conversation. And it's worked really well, and I continue to do it. The second is you need to show statistics on kids who, when they don't meet the predicted score, that they don't get in and what happens to them. And the school would have case studies on that, or there'll be statistics out there, as well as even emails from universities as the other thing that I show, that what happens if you actually don't meet those grades, what takes place. And you're sitting without, you got the offer, but you're sitting without a choice, and you're in a much worse position. At that point, you don't have seats. Yeah.
Okay, so here, how would you deal with the parent who's convinced? So what Kavita has told us is one scenario she would sort of do, let's say, a very specific case of Oxbridge, and I'd do a mock interview and say there, but they'll say, okay, that's one aspect, but maybe predicted that we can train for. We'll do something about it, but predicteds are just not there. You're being unfair, you're ruining my child's future and all that he or she can get. How will you sleep tonight? Okay.
Very well, thank you.
I see predicted rates in the beginning itself when they come to 11th grade, either it is BDP, ICP. We tell them very clearly, we have a system, scientific system to calculate the predicted grade. You can't come and, argue with us as a school, any parent. So how many assessments has he or she been done, and what is the performance? What about the effort grade? How much of effort been put in?
But I don't agree, ma'am. Whatever you're saying, my child is more brilliant. There was a death in the family. The child had an anxiety issue, but they're better now. They're on medication.
The anxiety issue can be later also. You can't, simply put up, high in predicted grade. What if your child doesn't perform well and,
That is our
lesser than
problem.
that?
Aap bas kar do, please. That is our problem. We'll figure it out.
See, we have to convince
Really?
them. These things we tell them in the as a headmistress or
So
coordinator.
what you're saying is you set the expectation
In the
and a
beginning
benchmark in the beginning of the conversation.
the conversation, and in beginning of the session itself, as we see, this is the problem. Every time we face
Ma'am.
this, even for the recommendations also, they come and complain that how can your teacher write that this could be improved, that could be improved. So we tell that, this is like we are not supposed to write only the bright side and positive sides of the children, right? So what he or she could be done and what might be the little challenging area, but we could see that they are working towards it. That is, the genuinity of that.
If I summarize, ma'am. So you're
Yeah.
saying at the beginning of the session,
Yes.
you would, in the school year, in your boot camp, in your orientation, you would
Yes.
set the expectation,
Yes,
perhaps have a policy. And number 2, you're navigating the rest of the conversations backed by data or previous experience and case studies in the school. Ramya ma'am, what would you do? Could you just take the mic? They can't hear.
Okay, one is process, as she said, right? We share it, we are very transparent about the process, and we absolutely have a no negotiation policy because and our administration backs it. I feel like a lot of the stuff, the school principals, if there are any, you have to protect your counselor because otherwise, yes, right?
Absolutely.
What if it's the principal's child?
I've counseled 2 of my principal's daughters. I mean, I was lucky because they didn't
No,
argue
listen,
at all.
you were lucky that way.
1 second, we just come to you, that's mine.
Hi, as a recent IB student a couple of years ago, I think what my school did was we had a grade 11 final results, and then our midterms for grade 12, and our first mock papers for our board exams. And they used to take the average of these 3 exams. So it gave them a overview, holistic approach as to how you did in 11th, how you did in your midterms in 12th, and how you've prepared for your board exams. And we had a non-negotiation policy. In negotiated with them, they would say, I'm not even giving you this score. So like you have no. So it was pretty serious when I was in school, at least a couple.
What school was that?
Jane International.
Got it.
Just quick question in the room to all the universities. How many of you read an application and feel the predicteds are inflated?
What would you like us to do as school counselors? What would make things easier for you?
Their policy, are you aware that a school has policy or does not have a policy on predicteds?
I'm an admissions counselor, and I've had sometimes some situations where there are 2 predicted grades sent to me. We can't not look at the first grade because that's what was submitted. It's on your prediction. So I've had to reach out to the counselor to ask what happened here, what's the situation, and why they. And this happens. This happens in a lot of different regions. The other thing is, it depends on the university, how much of that predicted score is really going to be the deciding factor, whether or not the student is going to get in or not. Sometimes parents don't know that. They think this is the only thing, and they don't realize how holistic an application really can be.
Ma'am, are you representing a US university?
Yes.
But if you're in the UK, there are very few data points that are submitted through the UCAS.
So
and predictors do make a difference. And also, it does allow you whether you can submit to a, ma'am, we will come back to you, but it also, because there's a larger audience, it also allows whether, for example, if you come to UCL for something, you need 95 in math. So if your predicted is not 90, you are not even valid as an applicant. You can't even apply. Even if you apply, they will not look. So there are multifarious implications which come on top of us. And then back to you.
And I'm aware of that. And that's what I was coming to. The second point is that's maybe the conversation between the counselor and the parent needs to shift at what is the list of the schools we're looking at. Because it's obviously there's nothing much that the counselor can do to change that, but you just basically walk them through and explain what's going to be the outcome of this.
Thank you. So just recapping, sharing the data for the last 3 years and showing where the placements were. Okay. How many
And
of
you
us
share that data with whom?
The students in the orientation with the parents. So
So-
coming back to your point, ma'am, setting a baseline. How many of us track that data as schools, guys? Can I see a show of hands?
How many of you share it with your heads of departments? Yeah. So basically what that helps, that's again an internal process which can help you improve the accuracy of predicteds over the years. How many of you use UCAS data to say, in this year, the child got these were the faculties that the kid applied to with these predicteds. This is where he got and this is where he didn't get. Then that helps you advise the subsequent cohort. Okay. So we're just going to skip this slide for now, but I think what comes out through this discussion is having a policy on predicted scores. Right?
And communicating it early on in the process so it's not a shocker to everyone.
And I think what all of us miss is we communicate it to our students, to our parents, we don't share it with our universities. So even having policies of your predicted score on your school profile may be a valuable.
So here's the thing, Amrita, it doesn't apply to predicted marks, but it applies to my midterms. At DPS Arkipuram, we're very rigorous with the kids in their midterms. It's actually holding the horse back before you let the child go. You know, that is the philosophy. So initially, all the other schools, because they were applying abroad, had fairly healthy, fluffed up midterm marks. But our kids, anyone who's 88, I know will be 95, 96. Like, I know that. So over the years, I have had those conversations every time I've met a uni, saying the midterms are horses held back. I didn't put it in writing, but I had those conversations saying, please understand that there will be a little bit of a uptick from here to the pre-boards and a definite push up to the boards. But that is experience of 30 years in our school, right?
And what I would do is, because I don't know whether I'd get an opportunity to explain this to every university, we started including class average. So I have my score and you have class averages.
Yeah.
So even if it's like a low score compared to other schools, you at least in your school know that this kid, even with a 70, for example, in an ISC or CBSE, is actually the topper, because the average is otherwise
say 56.
58 or
Yeah,
whatever. Right?
Exactly. Yeah, subject average.
Subject average. Okay.
Subject average for the class in the predicted, it comes out.
So two solutions we thought about is to relook at the university list for Ramya. Sorry, Ramya, you can't apply to Oxford, right? Or to defer the predicted scores to the next set of exams if it is not Oxbridge because there's a timeline issue. So it's a mix of both. But the important line that is here on the slide is that whatever policy you make or whatever should be adhered in all cases with no exceptions, not just because someone's applying to Oxbridge. Because I have goofed up on this, said that there's a policy, made an exception, and then next year I had 5 kids who said, ma'am, but we are applying Oxbridge. So that was the ploy to get the predicted score earlier and do all their.
And they always find out. What happens in your room, somebody will tell their best friend. The best friend will always have yet another best friend. They're 14, 15, 18 years old. They have 3, 4, 5 best friends. I have 5 best friends. It's fine. Okay, this is something which has come from the corporate world, right? It's called the newspaper test. I was very young and impressionable and I joined GE, which for some of us who are in our 40s will understand what a big company it was back then under Jack Welch. It was enormous. And one of the first things we were taught was ethics, and because we were in the financial services, and I had this newspaper test. What does that mean? If what you're doing is published on the front page of the newspaper above the fold, I repeat, if what you are doing is published in the newspaper above the fold, are you okay? Have you damaged your brand? Have you damaged the company's brand? Do not damage. Before anything else, do no harm, right? So please, when you're facing these things, literally, this has helped me millions of times in corporate situations, in personal situations. What we're doing here today is getting recorded. Is there anything that we're putting out there that might damage somebody? I'll give you an example. We were joking about Jim and then me, and I realized Jim used to be at Drexel. So we immediately, you cover that. Do no harm, right? So this is something that you might want to use. It is also a great test for your kids to do. Hey, you're doing this. If you got published in a newspaper that you claim to do XYZ, but you haven't done it, does that damage your college application? So this is a very simple, easy test that you can use. Please feel free to use, because G used to say copy shamelessly. So please copy shamelessly.
And we do have now, so, and you don't only have to just tell them this, you've had enough in the newspaper about or on media to say that this one fudged their application or a university got caught on something. So those are real things to talk about with your kids when they're thinking about not just their college application, but a lot more otherwise, right? So when you're thinking about building your counseling curriculum, is there a conversation on ethics early enough so that they're not tempted to get 100 certificates, do everything where there's only a certificate and nothing else. Right?
And if you don't, and if you think your kids are getting bored of listening to your voice, and it happens, I used to do 100 sessions a year, and at least 40 to 50 sessions, I used to request somebody else to come and talk. Sometimes you need a third party to come and have that conversation. There are lots of red badges here, guys. So please just grab one of them and say, hey, we'd like a session on ethics, or we'll figure it out. There are various ways. Okay, so may I do this bit? I'm really enthusiastic about this. I just feel as a profession, we don't treat ourselves with respect. We don't.
As counselors.
As counselors. No, but also in higher education. Doctors have a code. Lawyers have a code. Accountants have a code. Journalists have a code. Why do we in India and other countries not lift ourselves to the level of self-respect? Say we have a code and we adhere to at least that code. And yes, people are going to have various implications of it. But guys, this is a request to you. I don't know if you know, the IC3 has developed a base code
I've
of
got
ethics.
this here, so if any of one of you would like to take a copy. Yeah.
So we have a code of ethics. Ma'am, Ritu, if you'll just take the mic so kids, people
Results
on.
based on, the mass cheating that had happened in our school. It's a different story that some of them got into universities, but some of them were
Didn't,
rejected
right.
because we played our ethics in place.
Yes, so it does, universities do know, and please let us assure you, hey, university chaps, counselors and educators talk, and guess what, school chaps and chappies, universities talk to each other. Okay, they'll be like, hey, so-and-so picked up the phone and called me and said, this one needs help. You can trust her, and or you know what, their kids are always a little off from what they have committed. It happens, people talk, it's natural and human, but back to the codes, we have a code of ethics. Please, it's online. Some of the copies are available here. We're trying to be sustainable. Please have a read and we'll share with you what we can do with it. The next is, this is Nitina, she's not here right now, but Nitina mentioned this yesterday. She's like, Ambika, what is the consequence of not showing the ethics that we should be? And we realized that blacklisting. Schools do get blacklisted. Please let me assure you, as DPS Puram, I will not name when and I will not name who, but we have had challenges and it has taken me years of being this human being and being this strong and this committed to breaking that list. It happens. And if it is not an open policy, it'll be in the back of your head because the person reading you also knows. Amrita?
So I just want to ask universities here. So just the way we as counselors have, and I'm going to only, take the context of UK, just like we are privy to data to say that this was our predicted, this is how much they got, and this was the university offers at these scores, etc. Universities obviously also have that scores, right? That we received this from this school, so I want to open a question to the universities that do you, in your head, know that X school would inflate this much percent, Y school would inflate this much, or I really respect this school because I think I get very accurate and honest information. So just, this is a question to the universities in the room. Or am I asking everyone here is not in admissions and is in outreach and may not be privy to that information? Yeah.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Sarah from UCLA. And yes, we are very strict about our prediction policies. If students do not meet their predictions, they are going to be in trouble with us. And we do blacklist. I mean, I don't want to say blacklist, but we do track which schools that we are seeing issues after we admitted students, and that may affect their admission in the upcoming year. So that's definitely something we keep track of.
And this is, one second, this is especially important because some schools have gone test optional on the on the standardized testing, such as the UCs. And that means they're going to, one, depend on you as a school counselor. Two, they're going to look at that transcript. And it is important for not just this batch, but generations after, because it takes many, 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 many years. I will not name which IV, but there's one IV that I have not been able to place a kid in. And I've had 11,000 kids go through my room. And I've not been able to crack that because of one issue 8 years ago. 8 years, guys. I'm being very open and transparent. Again, transparent. I'm sharing with you, stuff happens. It's not explicit. They're very polite. I'm very polite. They personally love me. But 8 years, no offer. I'm being upfront about it. If you have the energy, you can go through our submissions and you will figure it out who, etc. But if schools like ours are still hurting, other schools will also hurt. That's my general assumption. If I can do it, anyone can do it. And if it's happening in my school, it's happening in every school. Honestly, because we have a socioeconomic strata which spans, from the janitor's kid to a kid who's rocking up in a Porsche. I figure if it's happening in my school, it's happening in other schools. And let's talk about it honestly and support a higher standard of ethics. That's all.
I think there's a familiarity that we have as counselors with high schools. And we know whether it's in the United States or here, the difficulty of the curriculum, the faculty, the school profile. But if I could flip the question on its head, which is how many high school counselors here inflated grades during the COVID pandemic? And I think whether that's not necessarily inflated grade, but considering the situation, like you mentioned, things happen. We are responsible for being aware of what is going on, whether that's at a personal level or a macro level. And so while we have familiarity with schools and their curricula and students and their performance in the curricula, we also have a responsibility to take into consideration the entire context. So,
may I try this one? I don't think a lot of schools inflated the predicted. However, a lot of students cheated because there were online exams. And I'm going to say it upfront because we have to have the courage to own up to stuff that's happening in our schools. Because guess what? The universities already know. Yes, Kanchi? You know, right? So why should I lie to her? I will lose my credibility if I'm not honest with her. I think a lot of students leveraged other means to get better grades. And because of those online test results, I felt the predictors were not in line with the what that kid would actually deliver had they been in school and they had been taking paper tests. That's for me, from my ex-school. I'm not claiming to speak for anybody else. Any other school counselor? Yes, ma'am.
Just wanted to make a comment, add to what he said. You know, this is the third batch of COVID that's come in. And the first batch, of course, grade 12. The next one was in grade 11 when it was a COVID year. And now this batch, the one that we've just taken in, was in class 10th. So scores of applications after applications. I saw grade 12, 10th marks were 95 and around, and grade 12, 55, 65, 17. I was, you know, well into the first round and I was wondering what's happening. And that's when somebody came in and said these were internal assessments because these kids were in class 10th. So, you know, it's going to get called out. So there's no point in doing it.
And there's academic loss. Let us please,
Absolutely.
and it's not 3 years, guys. Anyone who was in kindy and did not do years 1 to 3, early learning, early childhood education, it is going to flow through. Please let us understand it's a decade of learning loss, and we will all have to figure this out. Quickly on this.
Yeah, so basically what we are recommending is for you to review a couple of code of ethics. So NACAC has one, IC3 has one, there are many more. Look at your school vision and philosophy, marry the two to make your school policies for college and career counseling. Have it out there in the school's diary or something like that. These are some of the areas that you could cover in your school policy, some areas which you could touch upon in your policy document, and make sure that it's not shared with students and families, but also with universities. So when they come and visit you, buy that 5 minute, 10 minutes extra with them before or after their student presentation and make them go through this in your school profile, right? I think it's our responsibility as stakeholders to be fully aware and transparent with each other. And I just want to read out one line from the Code of Ethics.
One thing before your Code of Ethics.
Yeah.
I just want to say that in the cohort,
Yeah.
you spend 2 hours, 3 hours.
3 hours.
They do a 3 hour, 1.5 hours talk about ethics for all newbie counselors. So could we just have a round of applause for the fact that the IC.
Thank you.
It is a difficult topic, contentious. It's not the coolest, it's not the sexiest topic to be discussing. It's an important topic and we really appreciate that you do that.
Thank you. Thanks, Ambika. And I just want to end the session with this one line, which is my favorite actually in the Code of Ethics, which is that counselors and universities work with the cardinal belief that each student has the potential to meet their aspirations and the right to good quality higher education. Yeah, so if both universities and schools work with that spirit, I think biases, because then you're not saying, okay, he's average, he doesn't deserve this, right? So I think this is which I read often and which gives me the courage to sometimes go back in office and deal with that kid who's not my favorite or who's annoying. But I think it's something that keeps us going. So I just wanted to leave you with that. Thank you. I know we've not had time for Q&A, but both of us are here.
In the policy part, if you should also add one more policy, and we had it in Dune, was a CV validation policy. So whatever the kids do, they had to go and get it signed from the teacher they did the club or the society with, or even if they did something from outside, come back and you ask them, because you get into trouble with that once. Yeah, falsifying of data. Yeah, of everything. Yeah, 360. Yeah.